Philip David Charles Collins LVO is an English drummer, singer, record producer, songwriter, and actor. He is best known as the drummer, singer of the rock band Genesis and for his solo career. Between 1982 and 1990, Collins achieved 3 UK and 7 US #1 singles in his solo career. When his work with Genesis, his work with other artists, as well as his solo career is totaled, he had more US top 40 singles than any other artist during the 1980s. His most successful singles from the period include, In the Air Tonight, I Don't Care Anymore, Against All Odds, One More Night, Sussudio, Take Me Home, Two Hearts, A Groovy Kind of Love, I Wish It Would Rain Down, and Another Day in Paradise. Born and brought up in West London, Collins played drums from the age of 5 and completed drama school training, which secured him various roles as a child actor, with his first major role, age 13, as the Artful Dodger in the West End musical Oliver. He then pursued a music career, joining Genesis in 1970 as their drummer and becoming lead singer in 1975 following the departure of Peter Gabriel. Collins began a successful solo career in the 1980s, initially inspired by his marital breakdown and love of soul music, releasing the albums Face Value, Hello, I Must Be Going, No Jacket Required and, But Seriously. Collins became, in the words of AllMusic, one of the most successful pop and adult contemporary singers of the 80s and beyond. He also became known for a distinctive gated reverb drum sound on many of his recordings. In 1985, he was the only artist to perform at both Live Aid concerts. He also resumed his acting career, appearing in Miami Vice and subsequently starring in the film Buster. In 1996, Collins left Genesis to focus on solo work. This included writing songs for Disney's Tarzan, for which he received an Oscar for Best Original Song for You'll Be in My Heart. He rejoined Genesis for their Turn It On Again tour in 2007. Following a 5-year retirement to focus on his family life, Collins released an autobiography in 2016 and completed his Not Dead Yet tour in 2019. He then joined up with Genesis for a second reunion tour to commence in late 2021. Collins's discography includes 8 studio albums that have sold 33.5 million certified units in the US and an estimated 150 million records sold worldwide, making him one of the world's best-selling artists. He is one of only 3 recording artists, along with Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson, who have sold over 100 million records both as solo artists and separately as principal members of a band. He has won 8 Grammy Awards, 6 Brit Awards, 2 Golden Globe Awards, 1 Academy Award, and a Disney Legend Award. He was awarded 6 Ivor Novello Awards from the British Academy of Songwriters, Composers and Authors, including the International Achievement Award. He received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1999, and was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2003 and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of Genesis in 2010. He has also been recognized by music publications with induction into the Modern Drummer Hall of Fame in 2012, and the Classic Drummer Hall of Fame in 2013. Early life. Philip David Charles Collins was born on 30 January 1951 in Chiswick, Middlesex, now part of the London Borough of Hounslow. His father, Greville Philip Austin Collins, was an insurance agent and his mother, Winifred June Collins, worked as a theatrical agent. His sister Carol competed as a professional ice skater and his older brother Clive as a noted cartoonist. Collins was given a toy drum kit for Christmas when he was 5. His uncle later made him a makeshift set that he used regularly. As Collins grew older, these were followed by more complete sets bought by his parents. He practiced by playing along to music on the television and radio. According to Barbara Speake, founder of the East Acton stage school Collins later attended, Phil was always special. Aged 5 he entered a Butlins talent contest singing, Davy Crockett, but he stopped the orchestra halfway through to tell them they were in the wrong key. Collins studied drum rudiments as a teenager, first learning basic rudiments under Lloyd Ryan and later studying further under Frank King. Collins recalled, "Rudiments I found very, very helpful, much more helpful than anything else because they're used all the time. In any kind of funk or jazz drumming, the rudiments are always there." He never learned to read and write conventional musical notation, and instead used a system he devised himself. He later regretted this, saying, "I never really came to grips with the music. I should have stuck with it. I've always felt that if I could hum it, I could play it. For me, that was good enough, but that attitude is bad." The Beatles were a major early influence on Collins, including their drummer Ringo Starr. He also followed the lesser-known London band The Action, whose drummer he would copy and whose work introduced him to the soul music of Motown and Stax Records. Collins was also influenced by the jazz and big band drummer Buddy Rich, whose opinion on the importance of the hi-hat prompted him to stop using 2 bass drums and start using the hi-hat. While attending Chiswick County School for Boys, Collins formed a band called The Real Thing, and later joined the Freehold, with whom he wrote his first song, Lying Crying Dying. Career 1963 to 1970. Early acting roles and flaming youth. Collins began professional acting lessons at 14 at the Barbara Speake Stage School, a fee-paying but non-selective independent school in East Acton whose talent agency had been established by his mother. His first major role arrived in 1964 as the Artful Dodger in 2 West End runs of the musical Oliver. Collins called playing Dodger the best part for a kid in all London. His mother recalled that his voice broke and gave way during a performance and he had to speak his lines for the rest of the show. Collins was an extra in the Beatles film A Hard Day's Night among the screaming teenagers during the television concert sequence. This was followed by a role in Calamity the Cow, produced by the Children's Film Foundation. After falling out with the director, Collins decided to quit acting. He was to appear in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang as one of the children who stormed the castle, but his scene was cut. Collins auditioned for the role of Romeo in Romeo and Juliet, but the role went to Leonard Whiting. Despite the beginnings of an acting career, Collins never intended to pursue it professionally and gravitated towards music which his father was less enthusiastic about. In 1969, he performed in John Walker's backing band for a European tour, which also consisted of Ronnie Carroll and Gordon Smith on guitar and Brian Chatton on keyboards. After the tour, the four stayed together and became the rock band Hickory, which they later renamed Flaming Youth. They recorded one album, Arc 2, a concept album influenced by the media interest in the 1969 moon landing and features each member sharing lead vocals. After a series of gigs, the group split in early 1970. By this time, Collins had played in the Cliff Charles Blues Band, auditioned for Vinegar Joe and Manfred Mann Chapter 3, and played percussion at a session for George Harrison's song, Art of Dying. However, Collins's contribution to the latter was omitted from the version issued on Harrison's All Things Must Pass album in November 1970. Years later, Collins asked Harrison about the omission. Harrison claimed he did not remember why, but sent Collins a copy of the master tape of the song. When Collins received it, he was mortified to hear his contribution sounded unacceptably poor to the point where Harrison was heard on the recording ordering it removed. Collins contacted Harrison to apologize for performing so poorly, only for Harrison to playfully confess that it was a new recording as a prank for Collins, with Collins accepting the joke in good humor. 1970 to 1978. Genesis, later role as lead singer, and Brand X in mid-1970. The rock band Genesis had decided to become a full-time band, and following the departures of drummer John Mayhew and guitarist Anthony Phillips, advertised for a drummer, sensitive to acoustic music, and a 12-string acoustic guitarist. Collins recognized Charisma Records owner Tony Stratton Smith's name in the advert. He and Carroll decided to audition for the roles. The audition took place at the home of the parents of singer Peter Gabriel in Chobham, Surrey. They arrived early. Collins took a swim in the pool and memorized the pieces before his audition. He recalled, "They put on Trespass, and my initial impression was of a very soft and round music, not edgy, with vocal harmonies, and I came away thinking Crosby, Stills and Nash." Collins was successful and joined the group in August 1970. The group then took a 2-week holiday, during which Collins earned money as an exterior decorator. Mike Rutherford thought Carroll was not a good fit. The group enlisted Steve Hackett in 1971. From 1970 to 1975, Collins played drums and percussion, and sang vocals on Genesis albums and in their live shows. His first album recorded with the band, Nursery Crime, was recorded and released in 1971. For Absent Friends, an acoustic track written by Collins and Hackett, is the first Genesis song with Collins on lead vocals. He sang "More Fool Me" on their 1973 album Selling England by the Pound. In 1973, he and Hackett were among the musicians that performed on the solo debut of ex-Yes guitarist Peter Banks. In 1974, during the recording of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Collins played drums on Brian Eno's second album Taking Tiger Mountain after Eno had contributed electronic effects known as Enosification on In the Cage and Grand Parade of Lifeless Packaging. In August 1975, following the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway tour, Gabriel left Genesis. The band placed an advert for a replacement in Melody Maker and received around 400 replies. After a lengthy auditioning process, during which he sang backup vocals for applicants, Collins became the band's lead vocalist during the recording of their album A Trick of the Tail. The album was a commercial and critical success, reaching number 3 in the UK charts and 31 in the US. Rolling Stone wrote that Genesis had managed to turn the possible catastrophe of Gabriel's departure into their first broad-based American success. For the album's 1976 tour, Collins accepted an offer from former Yes and King Crimson drummer Bill Bruford to play drums while Collins sang vocals. Collins played percussion on the album Johnny the Fox by Thin Lizzy. Wind and Wuthering was the last Genesis album recorded with Hackett before he left the group in 1977. Bruford was replaced by Chester Thompson, who has since been a mainstay of Genesis' live lineup as well as of Collins' solo backing band. In 1977, Collins, Banks, and Rutherford decided to continue Genesis as a trio. As the decade closed, Genesis began to shift from their progressive rock roots to a more radio-friendly pop-rock sound. The 1978 album, And Then There Were Three, featured their first UK Top 10 and US Top 40 single, Follow You Follow Me. In 1975, Collins sang and played drums, vibraphone and percussion on Hackett's first solo album, Voyage of the Acolyte, Performed on Eno's albums Another Green World, Before and After Science, and Music for Films, and replaced drummer Phil Spinelli of the jazz fusion group Brand X before recording their 1976 debut album, Unorthodox Behavior. His time with Brand X gave Collins his first opportunity to use a drum machine and a home 8-track tape machine. He sang on Anthony Phillips' solo album The Geese and the Ghost, and the second Brand X album, Moroccan Roll. 1978–1984. Solo debut with Face Value and Hello, I Must Be Going. In December 1978, Genesis went on hiatus while Collins went to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, to focus on his family. His marriage had become strained after his extensive touring. Having failed to save the relationship, Collins returned to the UK in April 1979, by which time Banks and Rutherford were recording their solo albums. With time to spare before recording a new Genesis album, Collins played on the Brand X album Product and its accompanying tour, played on John Martin's album Grace and Danger, and started writing his first solo album, Face Value, at his home in Shalford, Surrey. After Banks and Rutherford rejoined Collins, work began on the Genesis album Duke, released in 1980. Face Value was released in February 1981. It features a rework of Behind the Lines from Duke in a more funk and dance-oriented style. Collins sang and performed keyboards and drums. He cited his divorce as the main influence on the album's lyrics and themes, and said, "I had a wife, 2 children, 2 dogs, and the next day I didn't have anything. So a lot of these songs were written because I was going through these emotional changes." Collins produced the album in collaboration with Hugh Padgham, with whom he had worked on Peter Gabriel's self-titled 1980 album. Face Value reached number 1 on the UK albums chart. It was also an international success, reaching number 1 in 6 other countries and number 7 in the US, where it went on to sell 5 million copies. In the Air Tonight, the album's lead single, became a hit and reached number 2 in the UK charts. The song is known for the gated reverb effect used on Collins's drums, a technique developed by Padgham when he worked as an engineer on Gabriel's song, Intruder, on which Collins played drums. Following an invitation by record producer Martin Lewis, Collins performed live as a solo artist at an Amnesty International benefit show The Secret Policeman's Other Ball at the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane in London in September 1981, performing In the Air Tonight, and The Roof is Leaking. Collins also worked again with John Martin in this year, producing his album Glorious Fool. In September 1981, Genesis released Abacab. This was followed by its 1981 supporting tour and a 2-month tour in 1982 promoting the Genesis live album 3 Sides Live. In early 1982, Collins produced and played on Something's Going On, the third solo album by Annie Frid Lyngstad of ABBA, and performed most of the drum parts on Pictures at 11, the first solo album by Led Zeppelin singer Robert Plant. In October 1982, Collins took part in the one-off Genesis reunion concert 6 of the Best held at the Milton Keynes Bowl in Buckinghamshire, which marked the return of Gabriel on lead vocals and Hackett on guitar. Collins's second solo album, Hello, I Must Be Going, was released in November 1982. His marital problems continued to provide inspiration for his songs, including I Don't Care Anymore, and Do You Know, Do You Care? The album reached number 2 in the UK and number 8 in the US, where it sold 3 million copies. Its second single, a cover of You Can't Hurry Love, by the Supremes, became Collins's first UK number 1 single and went to number 10 in the US. Collins supported the album with the Hello, I Must Be Going tour of Europe and North America from November 1982 to February 1983. Following the tour, Collins played drums on Plant's second solo album, The Principle of Moments, and produced and played on 2 tracks for Adam Ant's album, Strip, Puss in Boots, and the title track. In May 1983, Collins, Banks and Rutherford recorded a self-titled Genesis album. Its tour ended with 5 shows in Birmingham, England in February 1984. The latter shows were filmed and released as Genesis Live, the Mama Tour. 1984–1989. No Jacket Required in commercial ubiquity in February 1984. Collins released Against All Odds, the main theme for the film of the same title. The song was produced by Arif Mardin, and is one of the few songs released by Collins that he did not co-produce himself. The single, more pop-orientated and commercially accessible than Collins's previous work, became his first solo single to top the Billboard Hot 100, reached number 2 on the UK singles chart, and earned him the Grammy Award for Best Pop Vocal Performance Male. In 1984, Collins contributed to the production on Chinese Wall, the third solo album from Earth, Wind and Fire vocalist Philip Bailey, which included a duet from the 2 musicians, Easy Lover. The song went to number 1 in the UK the following year. He also produced and played drums on several tracks on Behind the Sun by Eric Clapton, which was released in March the following year. In November, Collins was part of the charity supergroup Band Aid in aid of Ethiopian famine relief and played drums on its single, Do They Know It's Christmas?, which was recorded at Sarm West Studios in Notting Hill, London. Collins arranged his touring schedule in early 1985 to accommodate the possibility of appearing at the Academy Awards in case, Against All Odds, was nominated for Best Original Song. Not aware of his prominence as a musical performer, a note to Collins's label from Telecast co-producer Larry Gelbart explaining the lack of invitation stated, "Thank you for your note regarding Phil Cooper. I'm afraid the spots have already been filled." Collins instead watched actress and dancer Anne Reinking perform his song. Reinking's performance was described by one critic as an absurdly inept rendition of the song. The Los Angeles Times said, "Reinking did an incredible job of totally destroying a beautiful song. The best that can be said about her performance is that the stage set was nice." Collins would introduce it at subsequent concerts by saying, "I'm sorry Miss Anne Reinking couldn't be here tonight. I guess I just have to sing my own song." Collins released his most successful album, the Diamond-certified No Jacket Required, in February 1985. It reached number 1 in both the UK and the US. It contained the US number 1 hits, One More Night, and Sussudio, as well top 10 hits, Don't Lose My Number, and Take Me Home. It also contains the lesser-known, Who Said I Would, and Only You Know and I Know. The album featured contributions from The Police's vocalist, Sting, ex-bandmate Peter Gabriel, and Helen Terry as backing vocalists. He also recorded the successful song, Separate Lives, a duet with Marilyn Martin, and a US number 1, for the movie White Nights. Collins had 3 US number 1 songs in 1985, the most by any artist that year. No Jacket Required won 3 Grammy Awards including Album of the Year. No Jacket Required was criticized for being too commercial, despite favorable reviews from many music critics. A positive review by David Fricke of Rolling Stone ended, "After years on the art rock fringe, Collins has established himself firmly in the middle of the road. Perhaps he should consider testing himself and his new fans' expectations next time around." Sussudio attracted negative attention for sounding too similar to Prince's 1999, a charge that Collins did not deny, and its hookline has been named as the most widely disliked element of his career. In 1986, No Jacket Required earned Collins the first 2 of his 6 Brit Awards, winning Best British Male and Best British Album. In July 1985, Collins took part in the Live Aid concerts, a continuation of the fundraising effort started by Band Aid. Collins was the only performer to appear at the London concert at Wembley Stadium and the US concert at JFK Stadium in Philadelphia on the same day. After a crowd-pleasing performance in London with Against All Odds in the Air Tonight, and playing alongside Sting, Collins traveled to Philadelphia via Concorde to perform his solo material, play drums for Clapton, and drum with Plant and Jimmy Page for a Led Zeppelin reunion. The latter performance was poorly received and later disowned by the band. Page later said that Collins had not learned his parts for the set. Collins responded that the band weren't very good, that a dribbling Page had made him feel uncomfortable, and only continued with the set rather than leave the stage in order to avoid negative attention. The music press noted Collins's astronomical success as a solo artist had made him more popular than Genesis. Before the release of No Jacket Required, Collins insisted that he would not leave the band. "The next one to leave the band will finish it," Collins told Rolling Stone magazine in May 1985. "I feel happier with what we're doing now, because I feel it's closer to me. I won't be the one." Collins added, "Poor old Genesis does get in the way sometimes. I still won't leave the group, but I imagine it will end by mutual consent." In October 1985, Collins reunited with Banks and Rutherford to record the next Genesis album, Invisible Touch. Its title track was released as a single and reached number 1 in the US, the only Genesis song to do so. The group received a Grammy Award and a nomination for the MTV Video Music Award for Video of the Year in 1987 for the single Land of Confusion, which featured puppet caricatures created by the British satirical team Spitting Image. The video was directed by Jim Yukich and John Lloyd. Reviews of Invisible Touch were mixed and many comparisons were made with Collins's solo work, but Rolling Stone's J.D. Considine praised the album's commercial appeal, stating, "Every tune is carefully pruned so that each flourish delivers not an instrumental epiphany but a solid hook." March 1986 saw the release of No One Is to Blame, a hit single by Howard Jones which included Collins on drums, backing vocals, and co-production alongside Padgham. Collins was one of the drummers, backing vocalists, and producers on Eric Clapton's 1986 album August. Collins's first film role since embarking on his music career came in 1988 with the British romantic comedy drama crime film Buster. He starred as Buster Edwards, a criminal convicted for his role in the Great Train Robbery. Reviews for the film were mixed and controversy ensued over its subject matter. Prince Charles and Princess Diana declined an invitation to the film's premiere after it was accused of glorifying crime. However, Collins's performance opposite Julie Walters received good reviews and he contributed 4 songs to the film's soundtrack. His slow ballad rendition of A Groovy Kind of Love, originally by the Mindbenders, became his only single to reach number 1 in the UK and the US. The film also spawned the hit single, Two Hearts, which he co-wrote with Lamont Dozier. The 2 artists won a Golden Globe for Best Original Song and receive an Oscar nomination in the same category. Big Noise and Loco in Acapulco were also by Collins and Dozier. The vocals for the latter were performed by the Four Tops. Film critic Roger Ebert said the role of Buster was played with surprising effectiveness by Collins, although the film soundtrack proved more successful than the film. Collins was the subject of This Is Your Life on ITV in 1988 when he was surprised by Michael Aspel in London's Covent Garden. 1989 to 1996. But Seriously, Both Sides, and leaving Genesis in August 1989. Collins appeared as a special guest for The Who on their 1989 tour for 2 shows, performing Fiddle About as Uncle Ernie in Tommy's Holiday Camp from their rock opera Tommy. From April to October 1989, Collins recorded his 4th album, But Seriously, in England and Los Angeles, which saw him address social and political themes in his lyrics. The album was released in November 1989 to worldwide commercial success, spending #1 in the UK for 15 weeks and in the US for 3. It became the UK's best-selling album of 1990 and is among the best-selling albums in UK chart history. It is the 2nd best-selling album in Germany. Its lead single, Another Day in Paradise, is an anti-homelessness song and features David Crosby singing backing vocals. Upon its release in October 1989, it went to #1 in the US to become the final #1 single there of the 1980s. Despite its success, the song was also heavily criticized and became linked to allegations of hypocrisy made against Collins. Responding to criticism of the song, Collins stated, "When I drive down the street, I see the same things everyone else sees. It's a misconception that if you have a lot of money you're somehow out of touch with reality." In 1991, Another Day in Paradise won the Grammy Award for Record of the Year. Other songs from But Seriously also reached the top 5 in the US. Something Happened on the Way to Heaven, Do You Remember? And I Wish It Would Rain Down, featuring Eric Clapton on guitar. But Seriously was supported with the Seriously, Live World Tour, which ran between February and October 1990 and covered 121 dates. The tour spawned the live album Serious Hits Live, which sold 1.2 million copies in the UK and over 4 million in the US. In February 1990, Collins performed Another Day in Paradise at the 1990 Brit Awards, which won British Single of the Year, and in September he performed Sussudio at the 1990 MTV Video Music Awards in Los Angeles. He also played drums on the 1989 Tears for Fears single, Woman in Chains. In 1991, Collins reconvened with Banks and Rutherford to write and record a new Genesis album, We Can't Dance. It became the band's 5th consecutive #1 album in the UK and reached #4 in the US, where it sold over 4 million copies. It features the singles, Jesus He Knows Me, I Can't Dance, No Son of Mine, and Hold on My Heart. Collins performed on their 1992 tour. At the 1993 American Music Awards, Genesis won the award for Favorite Pop, Rock Band, Duo, or Group. Collins co-wrote, sang and played on the 1993 single, Hero, by David Crosby. Collins worked on his 5th studio album, Both Sides, in 1992 and 1993. It marked a departure from his more polished and up-tempo songs on recent albums to material more experimental in nature, with Collins performing all the instruments and producing the record himself. Because the songs written were becoming so personal, so private, I didn't want anyone else's input. The decline of his second marriage was a focal point of the album. Released in November 1993, Both Sides reached #1 in 8 countries, including the UK, and #13 in the US. It marked a drop in sales in the latter when compared to his previous records, only reaching a single platinum certification by the end of the year. Its 2 biggest singles were Both Sides of the Story and Everyday. The Both Sides of the World Tour saw Collins perform 165 shows across 4 legs between April 1994 and May 1995. Collins turned down the chance to contribute to Tower of Song, an album of covers of Leonard Cohen songs, due to his touring commitments. Collins left Genesis in March 1996 to focus on his solo career. 1996 to 2006, Phil Collins Big Band, Dance into the Light, Disney Work, and Testify. In the months surrounding his departure from Genesis, Collins formed the Phil Collins Big Band, seating himself on the drums. He had wanted to undertake the project for some time and felt inspired from the Burning for Buddy project that drummer Neil Peart had put together. Having moved to Switzerland, an invitation to perform at the Montreux Jazz Festival led to the band to come together, which featured Quincy Jones as conductor and Tony Bennett on vocals. The group toured summer jazz festivals in July 1996 with a set of jazz renditions of Genesis and Collins solo material. Their first date was at the Royal Albert Hall for a Prince's Trust concert with Queen Elizabeth II and Nelson Mandela in attendance. To learn his parts, Collins devised his own notation on sheets. The band then went on hiatus until a US and European tour in the summer of 1998, which spawned the live album A Hot Night in Paris. In October 1996, Collins released his 6th solo album, Dance into the Light. It reached number 4 in the UK and number 23 in the US. The album was received negatively by the music press and sold less than his previous albums. Entertainment Weekly reviewed by saying that, even Phil Collins must know that we all grew weary of Phil Collins. Singles from the album included Dance Into the Light, which reached number 9 in the UK, and the Beatles-inspired It's in Your Eyes. The album achieved gold certification in the US. Collins toured the album through 1997 with his Trip Into the Light World Tour, covering 82 dates. He performed Take Me Home at the Music for Montserrat benefit concert in London during this time, alongside Paul McCartney, Elton John, Eric Clapton, Mark Knopfler, and Sting. In October 1998, Collins released his first compilation album, Hits, which contains a new track, a cover of True Colors by Cyndi Lauper that was produced by Kenneth "Babyface" Edmonds. The album was a commercial success worldwide, reaching number 1 in the UK chart and selling 3.4 million copies in the US by 2012. In the mid-1990s, Collins was recruited to write and perform songs for its adventure film Tarzan, integrated with a score by Mark Mancina. Collins also sang his songs in French, Italian, German, and Spanish for the dubbed versions of the film's soundtrack. His song, You'll Be in My Heart, was released in June 1999 and spent 19 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Adult Contemporary chart, the longest time ever up to that point. In 2000, the song won Collins an Academy Award and a Golden Globe Award, both for Best Original Song. He performed Two Worlds at that year's ceremony and the Disney-themed Super Bowl halftime show. In June 1999, Collins was awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 2000, he became partially deaf in one ear due to a viral infection. In June 2002, Collins accepted an invitation to drum for the house band at the Party at the Palace concert held on the grounds of Buckingham Palace, an event which celebrated Queen Elizabeth II's Golden Jubilee. In 2002, he received the Disney Legend Award. On the 11th of November 2002, Collins released his 7th solo album, Testify. Metacritic's roundup of album reviews found this record to be the worst reviewed album at the time of its release, though it has since been surpassed by 3 more recent releases. The album single, Can't Stop Loving You, was a number 1 adult contemporary hit. Testify sold 140,000 copies in the US by year's end. Disney hired Collins and Tina Turner to perform on the soundtrack to its 2003 animated feature Brother Bear, which included the song, Look Through My Eyes. In the same year he was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. From June 2004 to November 2005, Collins performed his first Final Farewell Tour, a reference to the multiple farewell tours of other popular artists. In 2006, he worked with Disney on a musical production of Tarzan. 2006 to 2015. First Genesis reunion, Going Back, and retirement. Collins reunited with Banks and Rutherford and announced Turn It On Again, the tour on 7 November 2006, nearly 40 years after the band first formed. The tour took place during summer 2007, and played in 12 countries across Europe, followed by a second leg in North America. During the tour, Genesis performed at the Live Earth concert at Wembley Stadium, London. In 2007 they were honored at the second annual VH1 Rock Honors, performing Turn It On Again, No Son of Mine, and Los Endos at the ceremony in Las Vegas. On the 22nd of May 2008, Collins received his 6th Ivor Novello Award from the British Academy of Songwriters, Composers and Authors when he was presented the International Achievement Award at a ceremony held at the Grosvenor House Hotel, London. In October 2009, it was reported that Collins was to record a Motown covers album. He told a German newspaper, "I want the songs to sound exactly like the originals, and that the album would feature up to 30 songs." In January 2010, Chester Thompson said that the album had been completed and would be released sometime soon. He also revealed that Collins managed to play the drums on the album despite a spinal operation. The resulting album, Going Back, was released on 13 September 2010. It reached number 1 on the UK Albums Chart. In summer 2010, Collins played 6 concerts with the music from Going Back. These included a special program, Phil Collins, One Night Only, aired on ITV1 on 18 September 2010. Collins also promoted Going Back with his first and only appearance on the BBC's music series Later, with Jules Holland, broadcast on 17 September 2010. In March 2010, Collins was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of Genesis at a ceremony in New York City. As of January 2011, Collins has spent 1,730 weeks in the German music charts, 766 weeks of them with Genesis albums and singles and 964 weeks with solo releases. On 4 March 2011, citing health problems and other concerns, Collins announced that he was taking time off from his career, prompting widespread reports of his retirement. On 7 March his UK representative told the press, he has no intention of, retiring. However, later that day, Collins posted a message to his fans on his own website, confirming his intention to retire to focus on his family life. In July 2012, Collins's Greatest Hits collection, Hits re-entered the US charts, reaching number 6 on the Billboard 200. In November 2013, Collins told German media that he was considering a return to music and speculated that this could mean further live shows with Genesis, stating, "Everything is possible. We could tour in Australia and South America. We haven't been there yet. Speaking to reporters in Miami, Florida in December 2013 at an event promoting his charity work, Collins indicated that he was writing music once again and might tour again. On 24 January 2014, Collins announced in an interview with Inside South Florida that he was writing new compositions with fellow English singer Adele. Collins said he had no idea who Adele was when he learned she wanted to collaborate with him. He said, "I wasn't actually too aware. I live in a cave." Collins agreed to join her in the studio after hearing her voice. He said, "Achieved an incredible amount. I really love her voice. I love some of this stuff she's done, too." However, in September 2014, Collins revealed that the collaboration had ended and he said it had been a bit of a non-starter. In May 2014, Collins gave a live performance of In the Air Tonight and Land of Confusion with young student musicians at the Miami Country Day School in Miami, Florida. Collins was asked to perform there by his sons, who are students at the school. In August 2014, Collins was reported to have accepted an invitation to perform in December at a benefit concert in Miami in aid of his Little Dreams Foundation charity. He ultimately missed the concert due to illness. 2015 present. Out of Retirement, Not Dead Yet Tour, and second Genesis reunion in May 2015. Collins signed a deal with Warner Music Group to have his solo albums remastered and reissued with previously unreleased material. In October of that year, he announced that he was no longer retired and had started plans to tour and make a new album. By mid-2016, all 8 of his albums were reissued with the artwork updated to display Collins as his older self, the exception being Going Back, which had a new cover. In 2019, the additional digital-only releases Other Sides and remixed sides followed. In October 2016, Collins's autobiography Not Dead Yet was published. At a press conference held at the Royal Albert Hall in the same month, Collins announced his Not Dead Yet tour, which initially took form as a short European trek from June 2017. The tour included 5 nights at the Royal Albert Hall, which sold out in 15 seconds, prompting the announcement of Collins's headline spot at the 2017 BST Hyde Park Festival, which became his largest solo concert. His band included his son Nicholas on the drums. A review in The Telegraph stated, "Unlike the body, the voice is largely unravaged by time. It's still soulful, sometimes silky, occasionally bruised." In 2017, the tour was extended worldwide and ran until October 2019 for a total of 97 shows. In March 2020, Collins, Banks, and Rutherford announced they had reformed Genesis and were to undertake The Last Domino tour in November 2020. It will feature his son Nick on the drums. In October 2020, Collins issued a cease and desist order to Donald Trump and his campaign for playing In the Air Tonight at a rally. Drumming and Influence in his book on the Legends, who defined progressive rock drumming, American drummer Rich Lakowski wrote, "Phil Collins's grooves in early Genesis recordings paved the way for many talented drummers to come. His ability to make the drums bark with musicality and to communicate so convincingly in odd-time signatures left many a drummer tossing on the headphones and playing along to Phil's lead." In 2014, readers of Rhythm voted Collins the 4th most influential progressive rock drummer for his work on the 1974 Genesis album The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. In 2015, Music Radar named Collins one of the 6 pioneers of progressive rock drumming. In 2005, Planet Rock listeners voted Collins the 5th greatest rock drummer in history. Collins was ranked 10th in The Greatest Drummers of All Time list by Gigwise and number 9 in a list of the 20 greatest drummers of the last 25 years by Music Radar in 2010. In 1987, Collins looked back at his fast playing in Brand X and early Genesis. "I actually can't play like that anymore." Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins cites Collins as one of his drumming heroes. He said, "Collins is an incredible drummer. Anyone who wants to be good on the drums should check him out. The man is a master." In the April 2001 issue of Modern Drummer, Dream Theater drummer Mike Portnoy named Collins in an interview when asked about drummers he was influenced by and had respect for. In another conversation in 2014, Portnoy lauded his amazing progressive drumming back in the early and mid-1970s. Rush drummer Neil Peart praised his beautiful drumming and lovely sound on the 1973 Genesis album Selling England by the Pound, which he called an enduring masterpiece of drumming. Marco Miniman, drummer for artists including Joe Satriani and Steven Wilson, described Collins as brilliant for the way he composes his parts and the sounds he gets. He said, "Phil is almost like John Bonham to me. I hear his personality, his perspective." He singled out the drumming on In the Air Tonight as an example of 10 notes that everybody knows, and concluded, "Phil is an insanely talented drummer." Other drummers who have cited him as an influence or expressed admiration for his drumming work are Bran Daylor of Mastodon, Nick DiVirgilio of Spock's Beard and Big Big Train, Jimmy Keegan of Spock's Beard, Matt Mingus of Dance Gavin Dance, John Merriman of Cephalic Carnage, and Craig Blundell of Steven Wilson and Frost ***. According to Jason Bonham, his father respected Phil Collins' drumming very much, and one of his favorite songs was Genesis' Turn It On Again, which he used to love playing with him. Modern Drummer readers voted for Collins every year between 1987 and 1991 as Pop, Mainstream Rock Drummer of the Year. In 2000, he was voted as Big Band Drummer of the Year. In 2012, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Equipment: Collins is a left-handed drummer, and uses Gretsch drums, Noble and Cooley solid snare drums, Remo heads, Sabian cymbals, and he uses his signature ProMark sticks. Past kits he used were made by Pearl and Premier. Other instruments associated with Collins's sound include the Roland TR-808, Roland TR-909, the Simmons SDS-V electronic drum set, and the Lindrum drum machines. Collins also used a Roland County Route 78, Sequential Circuits Prophet 5 synthesizer, Fender Rhodes electric piano, and a vocoder for his voice. Other Korg instruments include the Wavestation, the Karma and the Trinity. Cameo film and television appearances: Collins had cameo appearances in Steven Spielberg's Hook and the AIDS docudrama And the Band Played On. He starred in Frauds, which competed for the Palme d'Or at the 1993 Cannes Film Festival. He supplied voices to 2 animated features, Amblin's Balto and Disney's The Jungle Book 2. A long-discussed but never completed project was a film titled The Three Bears, originally meant to star Collins, Danny DeVito, and Bob Hoskins. He often mentioned the film, though an appropriate script never materialized. Collins's music is featured in the satirical black comedy film American Psycho, with psychotic lead character Patrick Bateman portrayed as an obsessive fan who reads deep meaning into his work, especially with Genesis, while describing his solo music as more commercial and therefore more satisfying, in a narrower way. Bateman delivers a monologue praising Collins and Genesis during a sequence in which he engages the services of 2 prostitutes while playing In Too Deep and Sussudio. Collins told the New Musical Express, "I don't think him being a psychopath and liking my music is linked. My music was just omnipresent in that era." Collins twice hosted the Billboard Music Awards on television, which were produced and directed by his longtime music video and TV special collaborators, Paul Flattery and Jim Yukich of FYI. He also appeared in an episode of the series Miami Vice, entitled, Phil the Shill, in which he plays a cheating conman. In the 1980s he appeared in several comedy sketches with the 2 Ronnies on BBC One. In 2001, Collins was one of several celebrities who were tricked into appearing in a controversial British comedy series, Brass Eye, shown on public service broadcaster Channel 4. In the episode, Collins endorsed a hoax anti-pedophile campaign wearing a T-shirt with the words, "Nonsense," and warned children against speaking to suspicious people. Collins was reported by the BBC to have consulted lawyers regarding the program, which was originally pulled from broadcast but eventually rescheduled. Collins said he had taken part in the program in good faith for the public benefit, believing it to be a public service program that would be going around schools and colleges in a bid to stem child abduction and abuse. Collins also accused the makers of the program of some serious taste problems, and warned it would prevent celebrities from supporting public-spirited causes in the future. In 2006, Collins played a fictional version of himself in the PSP and PS2 video game Grand Theft Auto: Vice City Stories. Set in 1984, he appears in 3 missions in which the main character, Victor, must save him from mafia-hired hitmen, who are trying to kill Collins because his manager refused to pay his $3 million debt to them. The final mission occurs during his concert, where the player must defend the scaffolding against saboteurs while Collins is performing In the Air Tonight. After this, the player is given the opportunity to watch this performance of In the Air Tonight, for the cost of $6,000 in-game dollars. In the Air Tonight is part of the official Vice City Stories soundtrack, and can be also heard on the in-game radio. The song has also been featured in films such as Aqua Teen Hunger Force: movie film for theaters and The Hangover. In the Air Tonight, featured in the 2007 Gorilla commercial for Cadbury's Dairy Milk Chocolate. Many believed that Collins himself was the drummer. When asked about Gorilla, Collins jokingly commented that, "Not only is he a better drummer than me, he also has more hair. Can he sing too?" The advertisement also helped the song re-enter the New Zealand RIANZ singles chart at number 3 in July 2008, the following week reaching number 1, beating its original 1981 number 6 peak. In the Air Tonight was also sampled in the song, I Can Feel It, on Sean Kingston's self-titled debut album. Collins was portrayed in the cartoon South Park in the episode, Timmy 2000, holding his Oscar throughout, referring to his 1999 win for You'll Be in My Heart, which defeated Blame Canada from South Park, bigger, longer and uncut. The show's creators admitted resenting losing to Collins, as they felt their other competitors were more worthy. The episode, Cartman's Silly Hate Crime 2000, involves a sled race down the landmark known as Phil Collins Hill, which has an impression of Collins' face in the side. The Phil Collins character returns once more and gets killed off in the episode 200. Collins appears briefly in the Finnish animated sitcom Pasilla in the episode, Phil Collins' Hangover. The music of this episode is a pastiche of Collins's Another Day in Paradise. Collins was mentioned in the Psych episode, Disco Didn't Die. It Was Murdered, as resembling Sean Spencer's father, Henry, portrayed by actor Corbin Burnson. Critical and public perceptions criticism. According to a 2000 BBC biography of Collins, critics sneer at him, and bad publicity also caused problems, which damaged his public profile. Rock historian Martin C. Strong wrote that Collins' truly polarized opinion from the start, his ubiquitous smugness and increasingly sterile pop making him a favorite target for critics. According to Guardian writer Paul Lester, Collins would regularly call music journalists to take issue with negative reviews. Over time, he came to be personally disliked. In 2009, journalist Mark Lawson told how Collins's media profile had shifted from "Pop's Mr. Nice Guy, patron saint of ordinary blokes," to someone accused of blandness, tax exile and ending a marriage by sending a fax. Collins has rejected accusations of tax avoidance, and despite confirming that some of the divorce-related correspondence between him and second wife, Jill Tavelman, was by fax, he states that he did not terminate the marriage in that fashion. Nevertheless, the British media has often repeated the fax claim. Collins has been the victim of scathing remarks in regard to his alleged right-wing political leanings. Caroline Sullivan, a music critic of The Guardian, referred to his cumulative negative publicity in her 2007 article, "I wish I'd never heard of Phil Collins," writing that it was difficult for her to hear his work, without being riven by distaste for the man himself. Several critics have commented on Collins's omnipresence, especially in the 1980s and early 1990s. Journalist Frank DiGiacomo wrote a 1999 piece for New York Observer titled The Collins Menace. He said, "Even when I sought to escape the sounds in my head by turning on the TV, there would be Mr. Collins mugging for the cameras, intent on showing the world just how hard he would work to sell millions of records to millions of stupid people." In his 2010 article Love Don't Come Easy, Artists We Love to Hate, the Irish Times critic Kevin Courtney expressed similar sentiments. Naming Collins as one of the 10 most disliked pop stars in the world, he wrote, "Performed at Live Aid, playing first at Wembley, then flying over to Philadelphia via Concorde, just to make sure no one in the US got off lightly." By the early 1990s, Phil fatigue had really set in. Tim Chester of the New Musical Express alluded to the backlash against Collins in an article titled, "Is it time we all stopped hating Phil Collins?" Chester said of the unrelenting derision he has suffered, a lot of it he brings on himself. He also said that Collins was responsible for some of the cheesiest music ever committed to acetate. Eric Hedegaard of Rolling Stone mentioned that Phil Collins' hate sites had flourished online, and acknowledged that he had been called the sellout who took Peter Gabriel's Genesis, that paragon of prog rock, and turned it into a lame-o pop act and went on to make all those super cheesy hits that really did define the 1980s. According to author Dylan Jones in his 2013 publication on 1980s popular music, many of Collins's peers despised him. Some fellow artists have made negative comments about Collins publicly. In 1990, former Pink Floyd frontman Roger Waters criticized Collins's ubiquitous nature, including his involvement in The Who's 1989 reunion tour. David Bowie dismissed some of his own 1980s output as his Phil Collins Years albums. In addition to the song's negative press from music journalists, singer-songwriter and political activist Billy Bragg criticized Collins for writing Another Day in Paradise, stating, "Phil Collins might write a song about the homeless, but if he doesn't have the action to go with it, he's just exploiting that for a subject." Oasis songwriter Noel Gallagher criticized Collins on multiple occasions, including the comment, "Just because you sell lots of records, it doesn't mean to say you're any good. Look at Phil Collins." Collins said he has, at times, been very down about Noel Gallagher's comments. Gallagher's brother, Oasis singer Liam, also recalled the boring Collins's chart dominance in the 1980s and stated that, by the 1990s, it was time for some real lads to get up there and take charge. Appearing on the BBC television series Room 101 in 2005, in which guests discuss their most hated things and people, Collins nominated the Gallaghers to be sent into the eponymous room. He described them as horrible, and stated, "They're rude and not as talented as they think they are. I won't mince words here, but they've had a go at me personally." Collins acknowledged in 2010 that he had been omnipresent. He said of his character, "The persona on stage came out of insecurity. It seems embarrassing now. I recently started transferring all my VHS tapes onto DVD to create an archive, and everything I was watching, I thought, God, I'm annoying. I appeared to be very cocky, and really I wasn't." Collins concedes his status as a figure of contempt for many people and has said that he believes this is a consequence of his music being overplayed. In 2011 he said, "The fact that people got so sick of me wasn't really my fault. It's hardly surprising that people grew to hate me. I'm sorry that it was all so successful. I honestly didn't mean it to happen like that." He described criticism of his physical appearance over the years as a cheap shot, but has acknowledged the very vocal element of Genesis fans who believe that the group sold out under his tenure as lead singer. Collins denied that his retirement in 2011 was due to negative attention and said that his statements had been taken out of context. He said, "I've ended up sounding like a tormented weirdo who thinks he was at the Alamo in another life, who feels very sorry for himself, and is retiring hurt because of the bad press over the years. None of this is true." Praise Paul Lester of The Guardian wrote in 2013 that Collins is one of several pop acts that used to be a joke, but are now being hailed as gods. Collins has become an important figure in U.S. urban music, influencing artists such as Kanye West, Alicia Keys and Beyoncé. His songs have been sampled by various hip-hop and contemporary R&B acts, and performers including Lil, Kim, Khalees and Wu-Tang Clan co-founder Old Dirty Bastard covered his work on the 2001 tribute album Urban Renewal. In 2004, DCFC and Postal Service musician Ben Gibbard described Collins as a great vocalist. Collins has been championed by his contemporary, the heavy metal singer Ozzy Osbourne. David Crosby called him a dear friend, who has helped him enormously. Queen guitarist Brian May called him a great guy and an amazing drummer, and Robert Plant paid tribute to him as the most spirited and positive and really encouraging force when commencing his own solo career after the breakup of Led Zeppelin. Collins has been championed by modern artists in diverse genres, including indie rock groups The 1975, Generationals, Neon Indian, Yesayer, St. Lucia and Sleigh Bells, electronica artist Lorde, and soul singer Diane Birch, who said in 2014, Collins walks a really fine line between being really cheesy and being really sophisticated. He can seem appalling, but at the same time, he has awesome production values and there's a particular richness to the sound. It's very proficient in the instrumentation and savvy about melodies. Genesis bandmate Mike Rutherford has praised Collins's personality, saying that he always had a bloke next door, happy-go-lucky demeanor about him. Let's have a drink in the pub, crack a joke, smoke a cigarette or a joint. In 2014, ex-Genesis frontman Peter Gabriel, whom they both cross-collaborated with on some of their solo albums in the 1980s, referred to Collins as the workaholic's workaholic. He has been characterized by favorable critics as a rock god, and an artist who has remained down to earth. In the new Rolling Stone album guide, published in 2004, J.D. Considine wrote, "For a time, Phil Collins was nearly inescapable on the radio, and enormously popular with the listening public, something that made him an obvious target for critics. Despite his lumpen pop appeal, however, Collins is an incisive songwriter and resourceful musician." Tim Chester of the New Musical Express described Collins as the go-to guy for ironic appreciation and guilty pleasures, and stated he was responsible for some moments of true genius. Creation Records founder Alan McGee wrote in 2009 that there was a non-ironic revival of Phil Collins happening. According to McGee, the kids don't care about indie cred anymore. To them, a great pop song is just that, a great pop song. In this time of revivals, nothing is a sacred cow anymore, and that can only be a good thing for music. Commenting on Collins's popularity with hip-hop acts, he argued, "It's not surprising. Collins is a world-class drummer whose songs immediately lend themselves to being sampled." In 2010, Gary Mills of the Quietus made an impassioned defense of Collins. "There can't be many figures in the world of pop who have inspired quite the same kind of hatred bordering on civil unrest as Collins, and there can't be too many who have shifted anything like the 150 million plus units that he's got through as a solo artist either. The disgrace of a career bogged entirely in the determined dross of no jacket required however is simply not justified, regardless of how Collins gained either his fortune, or his public image." David Shepard wrote for the BBC in 2010. Granted, Collins has sometimes been guilty of painting the bull's eye on his own forehead. But nonetheless, the sometime Genesis frontman's canon is so substantial and his hits so profuse that it feels myopic to dismiss him merely as a haughty purveyor of tortured, romantic ballads for the middle-income world. Rolling Stone journalist Eric Hedegaard expressed disapproval of the widespread criticism which Collins has received, suggesting that he has been, unfairly and inexplicably vilified. Martin C. Strong stated in 2011 that the enigmatic and amiable Phil Collins has had his fair share of mockers and critics over the years, although one thing is sure, and that is his dexterity and undeniable talent. In a piece the following year, titled, 10 Much-Mocked Artists It's Time We Forgave, New Musical Express critic Anna Conrad said Collins had been portrayed as a villain, and wrote, "Was the bile really justified? Come on, admit it. You've air-drummed to In the Air Tonight, and loved it." The Guardian journalist Dave Simpson wrote a complimentary article in 2013. While acknowledging, few pop figures have become as successful and yet reviled as Phil Collins, he argued, it's about time we recognized Collins's vast influence as one of the godfathers of popular culture. Personal life, family and relationships. Collins has been married and divorced 3 times. From 1975 to 1980, he was married to Canadian-born Andrea Bertarelli. They met as 11-year-old students in a London drama class and reconnected when Genesis performed in Vancouver. They married in England when both were 24. Collins adopted Bertarelli's daughter Jolie, who became an actress and film producer. They also had a son, Simon Collins, who is the former vocalist and drummer of the progressive rock band Sound of Contact. In 1984, Collins married his second wife, American Jill Tavelman. They have one daughter, Lily Collins, who became an actress. The marriage encountered problems that culminated in Collins twice having an affair while touring with Genesis in 1992 with Lavinia Lang, a former drama school classmate. The two were previously engaged, but the relationship ended before they married. In 1994, Collins openly stated that he had fallen out of love with Tavelman and had filed for divorce, which finalized in 1996. As part of the settlement, Collins paid £17 million to Tavelman. Collins married his third wife, Oriane Seavey, a Swiss national whom he met on tour and who worked as his translator, in 1999. They have 2 sons, Nicholas and Matthew. They lived in the former house of Jackie Stewart in Begnans, Switzerland. In 2006 they divorced. Collins paid £25 million to Seavey, which became the largest settlement in a British celebrity divorce. Collins continued to live in Fayshee, Switzerland, while he also maintained homes in New York City and Dersingham, Norfolk. Collins published his autobiography, Not Dead Yet, in 2016, which chronicled his marriages. In 2016, Bertarelli, his first wife, took legal action against Collins pertaining to his account of their relationship in his autobiography. From 2007 to 2016, Collins was in a relationship with American news anchor Dana Tyler. In 2008, Seavey and her 2 sons moved to Miami, Florida. Collins recalled, "I went through a few bits of darkness, drinking too much. I killed my hours watching TV and drinking, and it almost killed me." He said in 2015 that he had been teetotal for 3 years. In January 2016, after moving to Miami Beach, Florida in the previous year to be closer to his 2 youngest sons, Collins reunited with Seavey and they lived together in Miami. In October 2020, Collins filed an eviction notice against Seavey after she secretly married another man in August. Collins sold his Miami home in 2021, for $39 million. Collins' brother Clive is a cartoonist. Phil appeared at his brother's investiture ceremony at Buckingham Palace in 2012 when he was awarded an MBE for services to art, with Phil stating, "I shared a bedroom with him when we were boys and he was always drawing. He used to do Christmas cards and birthday cards for the family." Wealth in 2012, Collins was estimated to be the 2nd wealthiest drummer in the world, surpassed only by Ringo Starr. Collins was estimated to have a fortune of £120 million in the Sunday Times Rich list of 2018, making him one of the 25 wealthiest people in the British music industry. Court case on 29 March 2000. Collins launched a case against 2 former musicians from his band to recoup £500,000 in royalties that were overpaid. Lewis Satterfield, 62, and Romley Davis, 51, claimed their contract entitled them to 0.5% of the royalties from Serious Hits. Live, a live album recorded during Collins's Seriously, Live World Tour in 1990. Their claim was they were an integral part of the whole album, but Collins responded the 2 should only receive royalties from the 5 tracks in which they were involved. On 19 April 2000, the High Court in London ruled that the 2 musicians would receive no more royalty money from Phil Collins. The amount that Collins was seeking was halved, and Satterfield and Davis would not have to repay any of it. The judge agreed with Collins' argument that Satterfield and Davis should have been paid for only the 5 tracks on which they performed, including the hit, Sussudio. Health in 2000, Collins developed sudden hearing loss in his left ear following a recording session in Los Angeles. He consulted 3 doctors, who told him that there was nothing they could do and that the chance of a full recovery was slim. 2 years later, he had recovered most of his hearing. Collins later found that it was caused by a viral infection, and that it resolved after treatment. In April 2009, Collins had surgery to repair dislocated vertebrae in his upper neck, which arose while drumming on the 2007 Genesis tour. Following the operation, he lost feeling in his fingers and could only grip drumsticks if they were taped to his hands. In 2010, Collins alluded to feelings of depression and low self-worth in recent years and said he had contemplated suicide, but he resisted for the sake of his children. In 2014, Collins said that he was still unable to play the drums and that it was not arthritis, but an undiagnosed nerve problem. In 2015, he underwent a spine operation. In 2016, he said he was still unable to drum with his left hand. His doctor advised him that if he wanted to play the drums again, he would need to practice as long as he took it step by step. In his 2016 autobiography, Collins acknowledged that he had struggled with an alcohol problem following his retirement and 3rd divorce. He also stated that he had been sober for 3 years. In January 2017, Collins said he was a type 2 diabetic and had received treatment with a hyperbaric chamber after he developed a diabetic abscess on his foot that became infected. In June 2017, Collins cancelled 2 shows after he slipped in his hotel room during the night and hit his head on a chair as he fell, resulting in stitches for a severe gash close to his eye. The fall was caused by his drop foot, developed as a result of his back operation. In 2017, Collins began to use a cane to assist with walking, and performs on stage while sitting in a chair. Honorary degrees. Collins has received several honorary degrees in recognition of his work in music and his personal interests. In 1987, he received an honorary doctorate of fine arts at Fairleigh Dickinson University. In 1991, he received an honorary doctorate of music at the Berklee College of Music. On 12 May 2012, he received an honorary doctorate of history at the McMurry University in Abilene, Texas, for his research and collection of Texas Revolution artifacts and documents. Politics. Collins has often been mentioned erroneously in the British media as being a supporter of the Conservative Party and a critic of the Labour Party. This derives from the famous article in The Sun, printed on the day of the 1992 UK general election, titled, "If Kinnock wins today, will the last person to leave Britain please turn out the lights?" which stated that Collins was among several celebrities who were planning to leave Britain in the event of a Labour victory. Collins is often reported in the British press to have left the UK and moved to Switzerland in protest at the Labour Party's victory in the 1997 general election. Shortly before the 2005 election, Labour supporter Noel Gallagher was quoted, "Vote Labour. If you don't and the Tories get in, Phil Collins is threatening to come back and live here. And let's face it, none of us want that." However, Collins has since stated that although he did once claim many years earlier that he might leave Britain if most of his income was taken in tax, which was Labour Party policy at that time for top earners, he has never been a Conservative Party supporter and he left Britain for Switzerland in 1994 purely because he started a relationship with a woman who lived there. He said of Gallagher, "I don't care if he likes my music or not. I do care if he starts telling people I'm a wanker because of my politics." It's an opinion based on an old, misunderstood quote. Despite his statement that he did not leave Britain for tax purposes, Collins was one of several wealthy figures living in tax havens who were singled out for criticism in a 2008 report by the charity Christian Aid. The Independent included Collins as one of their 10 celebrity tax exiles, erroneously repeating that he had left the country when Labour won the 1997 general election and that he threatened to return if the Conservatives won in 2005. Referring to the 1997 general election in his article, Famous Men and Their Misunderstood Politics, for MSN, Hugh Wilson stated, "Labour won it in a landslide, which just goes to show the influence pop stars really wield." He also wrote that Collins's reported comments and subsequent move to Switzerland led to accusations of hypocrisy, since he had bemoaned the plight of the homeless in the song, Another Day in Paradise, making him an easy target when future elections came round. The Paul Heaton and Jackie Abbott song, When I Get Back to Blighty, from their 2014 album What Have We Become?, made reference to Collins as a prisoner to his tax returns. Asked about his politics by Mark Lawson in an interview for the BBC, broadcast in 2009, Collins said, "My father was conservative but it wasn't quite the same, I don't think, when he was alive. Politics never loomed large in our family anyway. I think the politics of the country were very different then." In a 2016 interview in The Guardian, Collins stated that talking about politics to the Sun was one of his biggest regrets. When asked whether he had ever voted Conservative, he said, "I didn't vote, actually. And that's not something I'm proud of. I was just so busy that I rarely was here." Collins is a member of the Canadian charity Artists Against Racism and has worked with them on campaigns including radio PSAs. Other interests. Collins has a long-standing interest in the Alamo. He has collected hundreds of artifacts related to the famous 1836 battle in San Antonio, Texas, narrated a light and sound show about the Alamo, and has spoken at related events. His passion for the Battle of the Alamo has also led him to write the book The Alamo and Beyond, A Collector's Journey, published in 2012. A short film was released in 2013 called Phil Collins and the Wild Frontier, which captures Collins on a book tour in June 2012. On 26 June 2014, a press conference was held from the Alamo, where Collins spoke, announcing that he was donating his entire collection to the Alamo via the state of Texas. On the 11th of March 2015, in honor of his donation, Collins was named an honorary Texan by the state legislature. Like Rod Stewart, Eric Clapton, and Neil Young, Collins is a model railway enthusiast. He also has an interest in King and Country toy soldiers. Activism. Collins has performed at the Secret Policeman's Ball, a benefit show co-founded by Monty Python member John Cleese on behalf of Amnesty International. He made his first appearance at the 1981 show held in London's Theatre Royal, Drury Lane, and he subsequently became an activist. Collins was appointed a Lieutenant of the Royal Victorian Order in the 1994 birthday honours, in recognition of his work on behalf of the Prince's Trust, a leading UK youth charity founded by Charles, Prince of Wales, which provides training, personal development, business startup support, mentoring, and advice. Collins has performed at the charity's rock concert numerous times since the 1980s, most recently at the Royal Albert Hall in 2010. On 9 April 1989, Collins topped the bill at a benefit concert for the veteran English comic actor Terry Thomas. Held at the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane, the event raised over £75,000 for Terry Thomas and Parkinson's UK. Collins has stated he is a supporter of animal rights and people for the ethical treatment of animals. In 2005 he donated autographed drumsticks in support of PETA's campaign against Kentucky Fried Chicken. In February 2000, Collins and his wife Orianne founded Little Dreams Foundation, a non-profit organization that aims to realize the dreams of children in the fields of sports and art, by providing future prodigies aged 4 to 16 years with financial, material, and mentoring support with the help of experts in various fields. Collins took the action after receiving letters from children asking him how they could break into the music industry. Mentors to the students who have benefited from his foundation include Tina Turner and Natalie Cole. In 2013 he visited Miami Beach, Florida, to promote the expansion of his foundation. Collins supports the South African charity Topsy Foundation, which provides relief services to some of South Africa's most under-resourced rural communities through a multifaceted approach to the consequences of HIV, AIDS and extreme poverty. He donates all the royalties earned from his music sales in South Africa to the organization.